So about 1 year ago this week, I put up a video about how the US government saved Americans from affordable insulin. In that video, I go into great detail about how the FDA has a long history of keeping competitors out of the insulin market. I also talk about how the price controls through the Medicaid drug rebate program essentially put a price floor on drug companies. And I also talk about how the Affordable Care Act made everything worse. Way to go, guys. I bring in a ton of receipts and sources, so go check out that video if you want more information on this topic. Anyway, imagine my surprise when I started to see articles like this as of late, reporting that the largest players in the insulin market are significantly reducing their prices. This all had me wondering, how are these companies doing this? Aren't they going to get shaken down by these Medicaid rebates? So I found this article on Bloomberg titled, "Insulin Price Cuts Could End Up Making Money for U.S. Drug Makers." As you can see, it was published on March 14th, 2023, written by Elena Pang and Emma Court. Article talks about how the world's biggest makers of insulin are likely to make more money, not less, even after slashing prices by as much as 75% due to U.S. government pressure. That is because Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, both of which announced price cuts to their insulin products this month, could avoid paying out multi-million-dollar rebates to the government's Medicaid health care program. So it is nice to see these articles acknowledge Medicaid's role in drug pricing. A 2021 law incentivized the companies to lower prices by removing a cap on the rebate payment, a change that kicks in next year. Federal and state governments claim the rebates from drug makers to help offset the cost of covering prescription drugs under government programs. Yeah, remember that the rebate program was designed to save taxpayers money. By dropping the cost of its Humalog and Humulin insulins, Lilly could sidestep $430 million per year in new Medicaid rebates and make more than $85 million in new annual profits, according to an analysis by Spencer Perlman, the director of healthcare research at Vita Partners. Novo, meanwhile, could avoid about $350 million in new 2024 rebates on Novolog and Levemir and add earnings of nearly $210 million. Perlman estimated that both companies currently earn nothing on Medicaid sales. So I decided to look into this source from Vita Partners and notice how they begin this report, asking whether or not the price cuts were done out of altruism or self-interest. What do I keep telling you guys? These discussions always come back to the realm of ethics. Did these greedy corporations slash prices out of some noble sacrifice for their consumers' benefit, or did they slash prices in an attempt to make more money? Well, Perlman speculates that this move will end up being even more profitable for these companies, despite the fact that they are slashing prices. But before we get into that, I want to take a look at this other piece that Perlman wrote for Vita Partners, where he breaks down how the Medicaid rebates work. For branded drugs, the base rebate is equal to the greater of 23.1% of the drug's average manufacturer price, or the difference between the average manufacturer price and the best price. Average manufacturer price is roughly a proxy for a drug's list price. It is defined in statute as the average price paid to the manufacturer for the drug in the United States by wholesalers for drugs distributed to retail pharmacies. The best price is the lowest net commercial price for the drug, inclusive of drug rebates paid to pharmacy benefits managers. As an example, assume there are two branded drugs, each with an average manufacturer price of $100. One drug has a best price in the commercial market of $80, and the other drug has a best price of $70. The base Medicaid rebate for drug number one is $23.10, which is reflective of the 23.1% of average manufacturer price minimum. Drug number one would pay only $23.10 because that amount is greater than the difference between the drug's average manufacturer price and the drug's best price. The base Medicaid rebate for drug number two is $30 because that amount is greater than 23.1% of the average manufacturer price. Branded drugs with a very high list to net ratio in the commercial market generally owe a higher percentage base Medicaid rebate. So now we can see why drug companies don't often compete with one another by lowering prices, because doing so might mean forking over even more money to Medicaid in an effort to save taxpayers money. And as we can see, companies might also be subject to inflationary rebates if they raise their prices too high in a given year. And back to the first piece, Perlman explains the way it works now is that rebates to Medicaid are currently capped at 100% of the average manufacturer price, meaning that drug companies will not pay back more to Medicaid than what Medicaid paid them in the first place in exchange for their medicine. The American Rescue Plan of 2021 eliminates the caps starting in 2024, meaning that pharmaceutical companies could be subjected to paying Medicaid back more than what Medicaid initially paid them. In other words, these companies could potentially end up owing Medicaid money on top of giving Medicaid their drugs for free.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
And it looks like the caps were eliminated in effort to discourage companies from increasing their prices too much. Although, again, as demonstrated, the Medicaid drug rebate program also discourages companies from lowering prices as well. And in the case of these insulin companies, it looks like they are going to reduce prices in the fourth quarter of this year to trigger the best price so that they can enjoy the cap while it still lasts. So that starting next year, they can avoid paying hundreds of millions of dollars in rebates, which might actually end up making their Medicaid deals profitable. As Perlman explains, Lilly likely would owe about $431 million in additional Medicaid rebates in 2024 when the rebate cap is eliminated. This includes about $395 million in new rebates for Humalog and $36 million in new rebates for Humulin. We calculated these amounts by assuming a negative margin of 61.23% for Humalog and 30.52% for Humulin, as reflected earlier in this report. However, by lowering the list price of Humalog and Humulin by at least 70%, Lilly will avert the new rebates in 2024 and counterintuitively is likely to generate over $85 million in additional Medicaid profits in 2024. In total, the list price reductions for Humalog and Humulin are likely to result in a drop of gross Medicaid revenues for Lilly of over $572 million in 2024. However, Lilly will avert over $431 million in new Medicaid rebates and will also likely generate over $85 million in new Medicaid profits. Thus, we project the net benefit to Lilly is likely over $516 million. Doing well by doing good. Lilly's decision to drastically slash the list prices of Humalog and Humulin will undoubtedly benefit many diabetics with high deductible health plans, significant cost-sharing obligations, or who are without insurance. But the decision is not entirely altruistic.
Blow it out your ass.
Nor is it necessarily the result of political pressure. Instead, we believe the list price reductions are best understood as a logical response to a pending change in Medicaid policy that would have resulted in substantial new rebates owed by Lilly to states' Medicaid agencies beginning in 2024. Now, does this mean that I think this is good policy and that everything is hunky-dory?
No, of course not.
At the end of the day, these price controls are still insane, arguably even more insane than before, and I'm not sure how sustainable these lower prices will be. It is possible that we might see some undesirable consequences from these price controls. Some speculate that eliminating the cap might result in higher list prices for new drugs. That being said, I could also see this discouraging investment in new drugs and innovation. Another possible consequence is shortages for certain drugs if these companies are getting shaken down too hard by these rebates. According to this article published on White and Case in 2019, over 2,300 drugs reached the price cap. Not to mention, we are already seeing shortages for certain drugs. In the case of insulin, it looks like this may end up costing Medicaid, i.e. taxpayers, more money than before if these companies are going to end up turning a profit. So I imagine that we might see some socialists and cynics and other insufferable asshats try to frame this as Big Pharma making a profit off the taxpayers. But I guess we will have to wait and see what the consequences of eliminating the price caps will look like. In other drug-related news, it looks like Amazon is getting into the drug business. For just an extra $5 a month on top of your Amazon Prime membership, you can partake in Amazon's pharmacy program. I guess if you needed another reason to hate Amazon, now Amazon is part of Big Pharma! Woo! And I decided to check out the insulin options on Amazon, and it looks like a lot of the products are still priced high without insurance, although I did find one bottle of insulin for $35 without insurance, which is the sweet spot that President Jibber-Jabbering Joe Biden is looking for. I also found out that Walmart has already been offering insulin at much lower prices. And it looks like President Biden is already spiking the football on the lower insulin prices, so get ready for a lot more of that, folks. But I'm over here reading these news articles and reports thinking if these companies were already capable of making profits at reduced prices this entire time, and considering that we already have a lot of competition in this area, as the Bloomberg article notes, and considering that Amazon and Walmart are getting into the game, not to mention the FDA's long history of stifling and stalling competition in insulin.
You absolutely suck!
Reading and thinking about all of this has me even more certain that if we had a true free market in medicine, that consumers would be enjoying more options and enjoying lower prices while companies enjoy fatter profits without all of these bullshit-ass regulations and price controls screwing things up.